Hey guys, what's going on? My name is Codiak, raid leader for Exiled Power, and we are back for another video. And you know what? We're in the Nighthold, we're getting gear, so I want to take a look at the tier 19 armor sets and rank them in order of design and aesthetics and what they really bring to the table in terms of Blizzard's artwork. Now, we just did the 7.2 class mounts video where we ranked them from best design to worst design, at least in our opinion, but we're going to do the same thing for the tier 19 armor sets. And I know you guys have seen the tier 19 stuff. It's been out for a while, but I figured, we're getting this gear now. Why don't we just take a look at it and let's give our opinions about it. There was a lot of comments on the 7.2 class mount stuff, and I want to get the same kind of discussion going, but this time I'm going to be a little bit better about it. I'm going to start from the bottom. I'm going to start from the worst ones in my opinion and move my way up, because I kind of revealed it all right off the bat in the last video, and I don't want to do that for you guys this time. I want to make this a little bit more suspenseful. So here we go. Tier 19 armor sets, starting at number 12, the Hunter. Look guys, I play a Hunter. I get it. I know what a Hunter class fantasy is. I understand what they bring to the table. I just didn't really think this one captured it. I think it's male looking, and it's got a hood, which I guess is symbolic of the Hunter, but I just don't really feel anything. I don't feel strongly about this one in any way, shape, or form. It just looks like another male armor set. It's got some spikes on the shoulders. The headpiece, especially some of the variations of the headpiece, it doesn't really capture anything about the Hunter in my opinion. And the color variations, guys, are just awful. The green and gold one is probably the most standard one you'll see for a Hunter. Green and gold looks cool for a Hunter. Green is kind of our color. But the other ones, the teal and the tan, the kind of off red and teal look, the red and orange look, the purple and teal, I mean, they're just all over the place. So in terms of designs, this one was really, really far down on my list. Obviously, the class fantasy level of it, just not that strong. I mean, I get it with the hood, I get what they're going with. The belt buckle specifically has this bird kind of figure on it. I don't know what kind of bird it is, but it kind of just, it's just not that great. It's another, vanilla kind of run-of-the-mill armor set in my opinion. But yeah, that's why it ranks so low for me. Number 12, the Hunter. All right, moving up the list to number 11, slightly better than the Hunter, is the Demon Hunter. Now, the Demon Hunter, it's a new class, right? It's a new class, and they could go anywhere with it. And they seem to be sticking really safe with all of the designs for Demon Hunters so far. This is probably one of my least favorite ones I've seen thus far. They're sticking with the Fel theme. The shoulders are pretty cool. They've got the Fel energy coming off it and whatnot. It's got the skull with the eye band on the belt buckle. Everything else kind of feels a little too bulky for me. Now, this is a leather wearing class, and I don't feel like this is a leather wearer in this armor set. I feel like he's a little bit beefier, a little bit bulkier. The helm is just strange to me in some capacity. Now, depending on which variation you're looking at, there's kind of this skull that's tight around the face with some black shading around it. It's just not my favorite design. I don't know if you guys feel any differently. They're clearly going with the Fel look, the Illidari look. They're clearly going with the kind of skulls with horns look. I'm just not buying it. I really think they can push themselves, go outside of their comfort zone with the Demon Hunter stuff, and so far they just haven't done it. I hope they do in future iterations. I know we're going to be doing a video about tier 20. I'm having a lot of fun putting these videos together. We're going to be looking at tier 20. I'm hoping the Demon Hunter is a little bit better. Full disclosure, I haven't looked at tier 20 yet, so if you guys think they're going in the right direction in tier 20, let me know. I'll take a peek at it. But for now, Demon Hunters, number 11. Not that great in my opinion. All right, moving on to number 10, the Monk. Now, I got a lot of hate in the last video because I put Monk at number 1 for the class mounts. But I'm going to be honest with you guys. I have no love for Monk. There's no favoritism for me for Monk. I tried one out for a little bit in Legion. I just didn't like it. And now I'm looking at this tier 19 armor set, and I'm just confused. I don't know what is going on. So many things that I want to talk about with the Monk set. Depending on which variation you're looking at, let's just start right at the top with the headpiece. So you've got a hood, looks a little bulky. Some of the variations have spikes coming out of the hood, which does not scream Monk to me even a little bit. And then moving down, it just feels very armor heavy. Very, again, feeling a little bit too armored for a leather-wearing class. Now, a lot of monks like that kind of orby look on the shoulders, but again, they muck it up with some spikes. And the spikes really throw me off when it comes to monk. Now, the variations that don't have the spikes on the hood and don't have kind of the mask covering the face look a little bit better, but still, the spikes really throw me off. Moving down, everything just looks very heavy until you get to the belt. Again, we have the orb, which I do like for the monk look, and we do kind of have that oriental feel with the rope kind of interlaced throughout the armor set, but the spikes really throw me off. And one thing I will say, though, one thing I will give them credit for, I do like their color variations way better than I like the color variations on the Demon Hunter and the Hunter, because they just work well together. The basics of any design, philosophy is that you want colors that really mesh together. There are a lot of different ways to analyze colors and look at colors. Full disclosure for anybody that doesn't know, I do a lot of design work on my job, and so the color schemes that they came up with for the monk feel true to the class fantasy. A lot of browns, a lot of muted colors, and a lot of accent pops, and I really like that. They've been doing it a lot in the Legion expansion. I think they did a really great job with that for the monk, but everything else just doesn't feel very good. Now, I know Xerxes, our Mistweaver monk in our guild and one of our officers, has a serious problem with pants versus kilts, so I would love to hear your guys' opinion about that. They did go with the pants theme in the tier 19 armor set. If you're more inclined to wearing a kilt, let me know, because I'm sure he would totally be on your side with that one. He is definitely on the kilt bandwagon. So in my opinion, a lot of misses on the Monk T19 armor sets, a couple hits with the class colors and some of the ties to the class fantasy, but overall not my favorite armor set in tier 19. All right, moving up the list to number 9, we're looking at the Paladin. Now, look, Paladin has been in this theme for so long. Everybody knows what to expect from a Paladin armor set. We really hit our stride at tier 2 with Judgment, right? It's the tried and true Judgment avenging Paladin theme that we all know and love. And they've gone in some really cool directions with Paladins over kind of the different expansions and the different raids, but they're really stuck in this kind of heavy Templar looking build. And by build, I mean design. They have kind of this glow about them. They have these really eminent things, but they also try and weave in kind of that vengeful, that sinister aspect to it. And it's okay. It's very class fantasy. I give them points for class fantasy, but in overall design, originality, I just don't give them that many points. Everything looks clean. Everything looks good. They've got heavy armor, which I totally believe. They went back to the kilt look for the tier 19 armor for Paladins, which I think is cool if you're into that. The shoulders, I don't really understand. They've kind of got this floating disc with some holy particles kind of surrounding it, depending on which armor you're looking at, which variation, different colors, obviously. But overall, it's just kind of what I've come to expect from a Paladin armor set. Some extra plating around the waist area looks kind of cool, and the belt works really well with the kilt and all of that stuff, and it works well together. But again, it's kind of run-of-the-mill. It's kind of vanilla. It's not egregious in any way, shape, or form, but it's also not breaking any molds. One thing I will say, they push some boundaries with their color variations, specifically this slate and teal one I really like. Really cool, really different. Almost gives me a Death Knight vibe, but it's still Paladin vibe. But everything else has gold in it, and gold is the Paladin color. The gold and white one kind of reminds me of the old tier 1 Lightbringer. They've got some elements in the gold, white, and red one that kind of reminisce and bring me back to older raids, and the green one and the gold and blue one just kind of fall off for me. So they have some color variations that I'm not too fond of, but then you have the mythic variations, which definitely bump it up a little bit, amp it up a little bit. And yeah, that's my thoughts on that. Paladin number 9. All right, moving on to the number 8 spot, which is going to be the Priest. Now, the Priest set, I just kind of guess they were confused, or they were kind of just lost for ideas and directions, because the Priest set doesn't really look any different than any other Priest that I've seen in the past, I don't know, 3 or 4 expansions. It's kind of a buildup of what you would expect to see on a Priest. A lot of bulk on the top portion of the armor sets with the shoulder pads and the headpiece, and that kind of makes it feel lopsided for me. The non-mythic variations are really strange. They went to the hood, and that feels a little bit more like cleric-y or monk-esque. And I mean monk as in like a, you know, like a practicing monk, if you will. But again, they kind of, once you hit the mythic variations, it's very, very bulky. The color variations are wildly all over the place. I mean, just look at these color variations. They don't make any sense. They moved away from pure white for the most part and went with a tan look. They use dark reds, they use dark blues, purples, and it just doesn't have any vibe that I'm really meshing with. And I have to be honest with you guys. You now have two camps of priests, and Blizzard, I hope, realizes that. You have shadow priests and you have healing priests. The two are completely separate. You never have a shadow priest that heals anymore and a healing priest that plays shadow. Those are very two separate things, and they're not really designing in a way that works for either of them. And I think that's going to eventually bite them in the butt for whatever that means for designing armor sets. So a lot of mismatched ideas, a lot of weird things. There is some class fantasy nods in there. Obviously it's cloth. It looks like cloth for the most part. The belt looks pretty cool. It's a diamond shape with kind of a gem set into the piece with some ornamentation around the center apparatus, and that looks pretty cool. And the bottom of the vestments look pretty neat, but overall I just think they're confused. It's a little bit of a mess in terms of design. Yeah, let me know what your thoughts are on that priest one. If you're a shadow priest, let me know how you feel about that in a shadow priest world. And if you're not a shadow priest, let me know how you feel about it from a healing perspective. I know it's kind of a weird statement, but I think it really does apply to this armor set because you do have two vastly different sets of priests nowadays. And I think that's going to be a factor in this. And let's just remember, guys, that none of this really matters because you can transmog whatever the heck you guys want. Just wanted to bring these tier 19 armor sets to your attention because they are they're what's everybody, all the gear that everybody's getting right now. This is what you're seeing. All right, moving on to number 7, we are looking at the Mage. Now, the Mage, it does a great job. It hits all of the points that I think a Mage should be hit with, I guess you could say, in terms of design. But again, it's kind of in the same boat as the Paladin. It's nothing special. They do some great work with the particles around the mantelpiece, around the headpiece, especially in the Mythic sets. Hood off for the non-Mythic sets and hood on for the Mythic sets, which look really cool. The color variations, again, it's a hit or a miss depending on what you like. The ones that kind of stick in the same vein, complementary colors, if you will, or shades of colors look really good. The blue and teal one look really cool. The purple one looks really cool. But then you have some strange ones like the red and brown one with the yellow trim. And even the mythic ones are kind of off for me. There's a cool one that works with a fire mage, but then you have a purple and green one, which does not scream mage to me at all. And I feel like they've done so many of these armor sets with the specs in mind, but then you try something new, you try something wildly different, and it doesn't really make sense. You're just changing it to change it. And the purple and green, I don't think you'll see many people running around with it. I don't think it works very well, but it does scream mage to me. It does look very clothy. The headpiece, although bulky, screams mage. There's some tie-ins to scroll work that they kind of worked into the design. The ornamentation looks very ornate, it looks very cool, but it also looks clean and sharp at the same time, and I do appreciate that. But again, middle of the pack, number 7, the Mage. Nothing special in my opinion, definitely not the worst, definitely not the best. Alright, moving on to number 6, and after some serious discussion with a few of the guys in the guild, I was convinced to move this one down the list a few slots, just because there's some better armor sets after a little bit of discussion. But number 6 is the Death Knight. Now the Death Knight one, what does it look like, guys? It looks like the Lich King, and that's their theme, that's their thing, and I totally get it, and I appreciate it. There is some really cool color variations. There's some really cool fog particle work that's going on with this set. It looks big, it looks beefy, and it looks badass, and I will give it that. I will say, same point what I made with the Mage, some of the color sets and color variations don't really make any sense to me. They don't work in terms of the class fantasy of the Death Knight. There are some good ones that work with blood. There's some green ones that could work with unholy. There are some blue ones that could work with frost. But overall, they kind of tweak it enough that it could be a little bit misconstrued and a little bit confusing if you're kind of more of a true realist, if you're more of a traditionalist in terms of, you know, your color spec, your color armor color, there we go, matching kind of what spec you're playing. But I will say they did a great job making it look beefy, making it look badass. They've got some great ornamentation, great attention to detail, especially on the paulders, where there's just some really cool stuff happening. You really have to take a second to look at this one because there's a lot of stuff going on. The helmet looks really sharp. It looks ominous. The shoulder pads, you kind of got the skull ram look, which looks great. You've got the belt piece, which again is another skull. And then you've got the sabatons, which are, they've got these massive skull circle ornamentations right at the top by the knee, and I think that looks really, really cool. Again, some variations to the colors that I'm not a huge fan of, but then again, they're trying new things. I like it. I appreciate it. There you go. Number 6, the Death Knight. All right, number 5, guys, the Shaman. Now, the Shaman was a little bit lower for me at the start, but after talking to Kelso, who is one of our shamans, and after really looking at this one, I get it. The Shaman is cool. I will give it that. The thing that keeps throwing me off about the Shamans is the antlers. I don't like the antlers. I think it makes the entire armor look a little off, but I will say the rest of it is phenomenal. They are doing some great stuff with the Shaman armor sets, and they have been for a few raid tiers now. They get it. It's a male class. It beholdens to the elements, whether it be fire or frost or electric. I mean, it just looks cool. They've got orb elements, they've got plasma elements, they've got electric elements, and they tie it all in together in a very nice way. And a lot of that has to do with the color variations. The color variations work well together. There is not a single Shaman tier 19 color variation that looks off because they stick with shades, they stick with complementary colors, colors that work to kind of enhance each other. Again, the one thing that really throws me off with the tier 19 Shaman is the headpiece, is the horns. They look weird. I don't see them ever fitting in any situation on a character. Now, and I'm just looking at it on a human or, one of the more standard characters. But if you put that on I don't know, a goblin or a Tauren or something, it's just going to look a little ridiculous, I think. So that's why the Shaman is a little bit lower on my list. Everything else I love about the Shaman. It looks really sharp. I think a lot of people are going to be rocking this one without the helmet and just looking completely badass. All right, guys, moving on to number 4, top 4 now, is the Warrior. Now, the Warrior one, at first glance, was not my favorite, but after kind of looking at it again, I really appreciated what they did with it. They kind of pushed themselves out of their normal warrior vibe. The warrior armor set tier 19 is beefy, it is big, but they kind of went with this like sleek dragon theme, especially in the face mask. The face mask is a lot thinner than we've seen from warrior sets. A lot of spikes on the shoulder pads, a lot of kind of fur elements in there that you can see, especially under the shoulder pads around the belt. And again, another example of the color variations really emphasizing different aspects of the armor. The one in particular that I really love is the kind of brown and yellow one. The colors really pop. They really emphasize the cool parts about the armor. I just love it. I love it. I love it. And it's a little different than I'm used to seeing for a warrior set. And that's why it's so high on the list. It looks beefy. It looks badass. You may argue that the shoulders are a little much, or you may not like how thin the headpiece is. But in my opinion, this is a really cool step for them in terms of the warrior look that they've kind of established, the big beefy meaty warrior look, and it's a great step. It's a great armor set. I'm really happy with this one. It ties into class fantasy well. It's a great unique design, pushing themselves out enough in a different direction but still remaining true to who the warrior kind of identity is. All right, guys, moving on to number 3. These guys always get me, the freaking Warlocks. Their armor sets are always so awesome. I just love it. And the thing about the Warlock set that I really love is the Mythic armor sets. The normal heroic LFR ones don't really do much for me. The color variations are great. They keep in the same shades, but the headpiece specifically looks a little mantisy and looks a little alien-ish to me. But once we get to the Mythic ones, man, they knocked it out of the park. A little bit different than I'm used to seeing with the Warlock. They've got orbs kind of all over the place. They've got the ominous purple and the ominous red look that we've seen from the Warlock. They've got the curled horns, and it just feels demonic. And demonic in this kind of new way They're not doing anything super crazy with color variations and emphasizing like hard color lines like we've seen in the past. But they're doing some really cool stuff with the design, especially the orb implementation. It's the first time we've kind of seen like a string of orbs being involved. They really make the armor set pop. And I don't think if the orbs were there, I'd like it so much. But it makes it look demonic. It makes it feel like it's still a caster that's kind of rooted in dark magic and dark energy. And I really, really appreciate that. Again, the normal heroic ones don't look that cool, but in terms of the mythic sets, just absolutely knocked it out of the park. I think a lot of warlocks will like that. My one gripe with it is that especially in the purple variation, I think the darker colors could be darker, could be richer, because it almost feels like muted. But I think that's kind of part of the charm of it. You know, when I think of demonic, I think of dark energy. I don't think of really defined. I think of this kind of murky backroom vibe, and I get that from this armor set. I'm really happy that they went there, and whoever designed it, I mean, hats off to you guys. It's really cool. I think a lot of warlocks are really happy with it. But yeah, that's my number 3. So that leaves 2 more, guys. 2 more armor sets that we haven't talked about, and this number 2 one is one that I really, really, really like. It is one of probably my favorite sets I've seen in a long time, and it's the Rogue set. The tier 19 Rogue set is just so tried and true Rogue, especially the black and tan and red variation, the dark colors, it feels leathery, but it feels like he's cynic and demonic and packs a punch, and he's hiding in the shadows, and I love that. In terms of class fantasy, Outlaw doesn't really make sense for me. If I look at this one, I don't think Outlaw. I think Assassination, I think Subtlety, just because of the way that it's designed. But then again, Outlaw doesn't really fit into the Rogue spectrum, in my opinion, in terms of class fantasy. You don't have a spec that's designed for Outlaw, a spec that's designed for Subtlety, Assassination, etc. They did a great job with this one. Really tried and true Rogue. They didn't push themselves too far out of their comfort zone. They kept kind of the dagger theme in all of their design elements. You can see elements of daggers and blades, and I really like that. I feel like this guy is right behind me, ready to stab me in the throat, and that's really cool. I guess it would be hard to stab me in the throat from behind, but you know what I'm getting at. And they did a great job with it, guys. I mean, the belt looks really cool. All of the pieces work together. And that's really the key to the Rogue one. From top to bottom, everything works together. The color variations, you either love them or hate them. They kind of went with the muted tones with some of them, and then went with some really bold ones, especially like the red and tan and orange one. So you either love it or you hate it. I personally love it. I think a lot of rogues will love it. They'll be rocking that one. It's no Bloodfang, it's no tier 2, but after 19 tiers of armor, there's only so many directions you can go. And we keep challenging them to come up with new variations, new this, new that. But you have to stay tried and true to the class fantasy, because that's what players are expecting. You can't completely flip it on its head. So there you go, guys. That's number 2. And that means that number 1, numero uno, is the Druid. I am in love with this armor set. Now, the Druid has one of the best class fantasies in my opinion. You know exactly what you're going to get with the Druid, but there are so many options and so many variations you can go with the Druid. They've done a great job of kind of meshing and melding all 4 specs together, tying them all together in a certain way, and they give you a lot of really cool elements here. You've kind of got the ethereal owl look going on in the shoulder pads. You've kind of got that same owl look in the face mask. The entire body is covered up. The shoulder pads, which are kind of like the lunar symbol, look really great. The particle work is subtle but just magnificent. And then you have the shoulder pads, which are these elegant bird-like pauldrons that have the feathers coming out, look like the bird is almost about to take flight off your shoulders. And then everything from the top to the bottom is just, it screams Druid, and I love that. And the color variations, this is one of those instances where you're looking at the different color variations, and they're all great, and they're all different, and they really took chances with this one, and they really took chances, and it just works out so well. I really hope that you guys like this one as well. I know look, this list is subjective. It's totally my opinion and opinion of a few other people, but if you guys agree with me on this one, please let me know. Tell me that you love this one just as much as I do. I would love to hear from you guys. And look, all of these sets right? It's all subjective. All of these sets are subject to your opinion, and I want to know what your opinion is. What do you guys think are the best ones? Where did they hit their mark? What ties back to class fantasy? What ties back to the best designed armor set? And where do you guys think they missed the mark? Because that's been a huge part of that 7.2 class mount video we had. So I want to know where you think they missed the mark. And look, we're going to be doing this again, so you better get used to it. Tier 20, new armor sets coming out. We're going to be doing the same thing. This is just my rank of the tier 19 armor sets, but I would love to hear what you guys think. Leave us a comment below. If this is your first time on the channel, welcome. Please subscribe and like this video. There's plenty more coming. My name is Codiak, raid leader for Exiled Power. We'll see you next time.